with Eric Cedillo is here to inform, educate, and answer your legal questions. Thank you for tuning in today. From the law offices of Eric Cedillo, located at 1725 Greenville Avenue in Dallas, Texas, here's your host, Eric Cedillo.
Thank you so much for joining us this afternoon, this Friday afternoon. I am Eric Cedillo, and this is, of course, Law for the People. We host the show every Friday from 1 to 3 here on the Fishbowl Radio Network. We've got a very interesting topic that we're going to discuss today, one in which affects a whole lot of Dallasites. But if you're listening from other places, believe it or not, this could have a tremendous impact, I think, throughout the nation in terms of how these things are set up and the way in which they're being proposed. We, of course, are going to be talking about the new Home Rule Charter School, or Home Rule Charter District, which is being talked about in terms of changing the whole structure of how the DISD operates. We're going to have a couple of folks on our show today, Rene Martinez and Geronimo Valdez. Geronimo was held up with a emergency hearing that he told me about. Hopefully we'll be here in the second hour of our show, where we're going to be introducing Rene Martinez in a few minutes and getting some background from him and kind of getting an idea of how and what all this stuff looks like. But before we do that, I wanted to take a quick opportunity to kind of talk about what this home rule district looks like, and then we'll talk to Rene and get his input on what he thinks it's all about, the good and bad points of it, all of those things that kind of come with it. First off, it looks as though there is a group that has began a petition basically trying to acquire 5% of the registered voters, 25,000 approximately signatures, which would give them an opportunity to petition the Board of Trustees to create a commission of 15 members, and that commission would be charged with creating a new charter, basically, for DISD. And when they do that, it'll, of course, have an opportunity to be vetted by the Education Commissioner. And then once that's approved or disapproved, if it's approved, if he does nothing, it's my understanding that within 30 days it will automatically be approved. And then if that's the case, it'll go on to the ballot in November. So all this stuff is going to happen real quickly, I think, because if they have the 25,000 votes, the Board of Trustees must act on it within 30 days in the creation of this commission. And this commission, as we're going to discuss today, is going to be really powerful. It's going to be one in which a lot of changes can be made to our existing structure. So with that said, once again, I'm Eric Cedillo, and what I have to do with DISD is I've got 4 children, 2 of which graduated from public schools here in DISD. One graduated from Woodrow Wilson High School. The other went to TAG, Townview TAG, and graduated from there. I've got 2 younger ones, one in the 4th grade and one in kindergarten at Lakewood Elementary. So I've got a real vested interest personally in what happens next with respect to DISD. So these things are very important. They should be very important to everybody listening. Without further ado, let me introduce Rene Martinez. He is to my right, and Rene I've known for a long time. He's been a mentor of mine for a long period of time. He actually got me a scholarship, which really helped me get into the University of Texas, and was able to afford and pay for that. But tell us a little bit about you, Rene, your background, where you're coming from, for some of the listeners who may not know.
Well, I'm a little older than Eric.
2-3 years?
A few years. Now I'm 67. I was born and raised in Dallas, raised in the neighborhood nearby here. I attended Travis Elementary. I attended also Spence Middle School down the street in North Dallas. Graduated from North Dallas High School, as Eric did. So we're both ex-Bulldogs. I later went to SMU. I've always been involved since graduating from SMU in the arena of public education. And I have 4 sons, I have 5 grandkids, 2 granddaughters, 1 granddaughter attending Long Middle School, another one about to attend pre-K. So my wife and I have been very passionate and involved in public education since 1971, when I was first appointed by a federal judge to be a member of the Triethnic Committee that helped desegregate the schools. So since 1971, I've been very, very involved. I was a school administrator for 18 years. I was a campus administrator, central administrative office
With DISD.
with DISD, and now I'm a professor at Eastfield College, preparing teachers to become teachers. And so I've taught at SMU, Texas A&M Commerce, and I'm in education. And I visit schools almost on a weekly basis. And my other hat, my volunteer hat, is that I'm an elected official with LULAC. I'm the district director of LULAC for District 3, and we have 1,000 members of LULAC in the area. And so I receive a lot of calls, complaints about civil rights issues, a lot of calls and complaints from parents about public education.
Right.
So that's my volunteer hat.
Okay. And to my left, and this is Carla De Leon, and she's an attorney here in my office. And the reason why I invited her onto the show today is she's also been a teacher. She was a
That's
teacher
correct.
at Garland Independent School District. Tell us a little bit about you, Carla.
Well, yes, I was a teacher for Garland ISD for 9 years. I have experience teaching kindergarten, second grade, and fourth grade bilingual education. And I, like you, have an invested interest on knowing and being informed about the changes or possible changes in our community because I have a 4-year-old kid that will be soon going to Lakewood Elementary.
Okay. All right, let's jump right into it, Renee. This is something that kind of came out of nowhere for a lot of us. Now, the law itself has been on the books since 1995. The opportunity to create a home rule district has been on the books since 1995. It is my impression that it is the first here in Texas that an attempt at implementing it has been made. Now, I know there's a number of charter schools, and the code actually provides for schools and perhaps campuses, but in terms of an entire district falling under a home rule charter, it hasn't been done here in Texas. I think a couple of other cities may have attempted it, New York and Boston. Tell us what you think. What is your initial impression about what it is this organization is trying to do?
Well, I think first of all, people have to understand the context, the demographic context of what the city looks like. And if we don't understand demographics and what it means to public education, then we're missing the boat.
Okay.
When I got involved in 1971, the DISD's Latino population was 8%. African American was about 35, the remaining white. Approximately 175,000 students. We now have, fast forward to now, present time, we have 159,000 students in DISD. 70% are Latinos, 23% are Black, and the remaining are other and Anglo. So that's the context. Within those parameters, public education is going through some change right now with a new superintendent, with board members that are seeking some changes. Last year, we brought about the whole issue of accountability for campus administrators, for principals.
Right.
What created a lot of controversy. This year, the superintendent wants to bring about some very, very innovative reform in terms of how teachers are evaluated. It's called the Teacher Excellence Initiative. So there's already some initiatives taking place. This movement, and those of us that have been critiquing this movement, is how it was just sprung upon the community without much input, without much debate, without much discussion, especially for those of us that have been in the arena of public education. So that's the first critique, and everybody apologizes about it. The people involved, we apologize if the media got
Well,
hold of
let's talk about that.
Yeah.
Let's talk about specifically how it was sprung. It's my understanding, or I first heard about it when, in fact, the last election, around March 2nd, March 3rd, where it got some press, basically folks showing up to the polls. It's Support Our Public Schools is the organization. I believe it's a nonprofit. And what they did was they went out to the polls and said, hey, we need some signatures. And it wasn't a very good explanation from what I understand of the people that were going out to the polls. Basically, hey, you want to improve our public schools, sign here, that type of thing. So it's a situation where it did spring out of kind of nowhere, and there's an evolution to it. It's kind of, I guess, building. The reality is they only need 25,000 signatures. Now, Geronimo is going to hopefully come down and talk to us a little bit about where they are in that process. But once that happens, and once those 25,000 signatures are garnered, it's my understanding that they have to create a commission. And that's kind of where we are. I'd like to know how many there are, how many signatures we have. I think we asked him that last night, and he didn't have the answers. So hopefully he'll have the answers this afternoon, and will be able to tell us where we are in the process. But it surprised a lot of people. Why don't you tell us a little bit about the meeting, if you can, last night with the mayor, and how that all kind of transpired, and what you got out of it.
Well, I've been involved in reform issues like this before, and having been born and raised in Dallas, you learn from experience. There's a right way of doing it, and there's a wrong way of doing it. This particular movement so far has done, from my humble opinion, every wrong way of doing it.
Okay.
No public disclosure. There's an old saying in Spanish, dime con quién andas y te digo quién eres. Tell me who you're with and I'll tell you who you are.
And about that, let me ask you a question. So when you define, when you say movement, like, can you define who are we talking about?
I didn't know, a lot of us don't know that, Carla. A lot, Geronimo was one of the first people that called me. Of the 5 people on the board, I know maybe one. I've never heard of the others. So there's a big question mark there.
Yeah.
And when there's a question mark about that, what is their motivation? What is their purpose? And for whose purpose is it? So that hasn't been articulated well. Now, Geronimo and others, Dr. Edwin Flores, who's supportive of this, he and I have had some very good discussions. I respect Dr. Flores because he's a former board member. So we've not debated. We've asked each other questions. The whole issue of governance, which I think we'll discuss in a second. But again, that whole mystery cloud of who's funding this whole process. We understand that some couple from Houston has donated $500,000 for the public awareness campaign in this process. Obviously, that paid for those pollsters and canvassers that were out there in the polls.
Yeah.
So this is going to take a lot of money. Well, what's their motivation? Who are they? Just because they attended Hillcrest High School, just because you and I attended North Dallas High School, that doesn't make us great guys.
All right.
So that's not, to me, that doesn't pass the litmus test. The litmus test is in terms of track record in public education, full disclosure, transparency, commitment to the city, living within the city. Some of these people, anyone doesn't even live in Dallas.
Okay, let me go ahead and play devil's advocate since Geronimo isn't here. Let me if I can, some of the information that I've kind of gleaned from him.
Yeah.
And get an understanding of, with respect to the timeliness of what's happening, how quickly it's had to transpire. I think if you look at it chronologically, they have to put this on the ballot in November, or in what they say is it's not going to happen. The reason for that, you've got to have, in order to pass a charter, you've got to have 25% of the registered voters voting. And in November, it's about the only time where we garner that many people voting. We just had an election and less than 10%. So they anticipate there being that 33% voting because somebody's running for governor. So it's a big deal. You're going to have more people at the polls. And you have to have that under the education code. So seeing that, if it doesn't happen this November, I think Geronimo last night said it wouldn't happen for another 2 years. So in terms of the timing and the time for them to get started, if you work it back, here's some of the other timelines that are there. It has to be, it's my understanding that once they get the 25,000 votes, it'll be presented to the Board of Trustees. The Board of Trustees has to appoint a commission within 30 days. So they'll have this commission within 30 days. The commission, of course, has to meet and create a charter within a certain period of time. Then that charter has to be sent to the education commissioner, and the commissioner has 30 days to approve or disapprove. So that's another 30 days that you have to work with. And then, of course, it has to be put on the ballot. And it's got to be 45 days before the next election. So you're looking at some serious time constraints. They would have to do this, I haven't done the math specifically, but they would have to have something, they would have to have this commission appointed within, I would imagine, the next 45 days to 2 months, or this can't happen this cycle or this year. So I guess with that said, I'd like to know really from Geronimo or this group when they started thinking about this stuff. Why it hasn't been made more public in the past. If they just thought of it, a month or 2 ago, I can see how these deadlines would make them, hey, we've got to act on this quickly. I could understand that. But in all honesty, we really don't know, and I'm really excited to have Geronimo come on and kind of tell us what that's all about and what the time frame was. Now, Mike Morath, he's on the board. He seems to be a part of it.
The Board of
The Board of Trustees. What do you think about his, position in terms of thinking this may be a good idea?
Well, a group of us also chastised Mike Morath because Mike has been a very good board member. And a group of us Latinos met with him before he ran for the school board. And we've had ongoing communications with him. And when we met with him for breakfast about a week ago, we said, shame on you. Why didn't you disclose this process to those of us that support you? And again, apologies.
Yeah.
Mike is a very smart guy. He's not on this particular board that Geronimo was on. And your timeline, the way you sequenced it now, Eric, makes me even more leery that this thing is going to be successful unless they already have everything in line.
Right.
And if Geronimo doesn't tell you today how many registered people are on that, then it's again being disingenuous, because as you well know, we asked him yesterday.
Yeah.
He should know exactly how many people have signed the petition, because that's going to tell you. If I was involved in that, I'd say, well, we're really going to have to take this petition out to the malls, to the churches, to the Republican Party and Democratic Party centers, and get these signatures done within the next 30 days. So if he says, I don't know what the numbers are, again, they're not being fully transparent.
What's your inclination? Mine is that they already have the numbers.
I don't think they do.
You don't think
to
so?
be honest with you. And I did the math. Say you had 50 canvassers and at the election day, and everyone had 100 signatures, which is a big number. That's 5,000 signatures. Unless they've been doing this a long time before, which I don't think they have, I'd be very surprised if they have it by now.
Because I wasn't present on the meeting you're discussing about yesterday, so who were the participants on this meeting?
That was part of the issue also. The mayor wanted to have a meeting of Latino leaders where he, the way I understand it, the way Geronimo explained it, where he could give his pitch about this issue. And a group of us advised him, Hector Flores, myself, my wife Beatriz, advised Geronimo that we shouldn't meet with the mayor right now. That we as Latinos, because we do have, and one thing I do agree with this process is that the governance representation of Latinos on the Charter Commission, on the ultimate board, could be larger than what we presently have. So that we ought to get our thing together among Latinos, because we all don't think alike. Let's get together, let's debate, let's discuss. I talked to you, Eric, beforehand a little bit. Let's really debate it before we meet with the mayor, okay? Because the mayor wants to do a pitch, a marketing pitch, and we're not there yet.
And we certainly saw that last night.
Yeah.
We saw a bunch of diverse individuals come in with certainly different agendas, different
Absolutely.
ideas how things were going to work. Now, as you know, the mayor walked out on the meeting. In all fairness to him, again playing devil's advocate, he was kind of being grilled about questions about how he was setting things up, and I think a big one was when they were talking about he's basically saying DISD is broken. And he didn't think that was up for debate. Somebody took exception to that and said, wait a minute, we're doing better. What do you think about the state of DISD right now?
Well,
Now you mentioned talking about it getting better, the
Okay.
superintendent and other things like that.
if you're going to deal with college readiness data, it's going to be what data are you going to look at?
Let's talk about
Okay.
that. Explain that to
What
us.
data are you going to be looking at data from the state, or are you going to look at data that Morath and others have been using that looks at longitudinally that we're not doing very well in terms of getting kids graduated?
Right.
If you look at the state data, it doesn't look that bad. Okay, are we growing? Is there growth? Absolutely. Where is it growth? Key areas, key schools. Woodrow, as an example, is doing very, very well. Townview, forget it. Townview has got 2 of the best schools in the nation.
Right.
In the nation.
Consistently over the last few years.
Over 90% of all the kids of Townview are college ready and go to college. They're not just college ready, they go to college.
Right.
Edith Raquel, same thing, ditto, over 90%. Arch Magnet, ditto. These are magnets. That's understood. North Dallas, our
I
alma
was going
mater.
to say that these schools, because I know them, they do recruit the gifted and
Well,
talented
absolutely.
kids.
Well, let's look at our home school, North Dallas High School. North Dallas High School had been AYP for many, many years, up until about 2 years ago. New principal, a lot new faculty members. North Dallas now is turning the corner. And look at the demographics. It hasn't changed. Predominantly immigrant, predominantly poor, largest number of homeless kids of any high school in the
Newcomers.
city. So North Dallas is turning around. Sunset has a new principal. I just had lunch with her the other day, Luz Martinez, and she's going to turn Sunset around. So do we have other schools that are struggling in high schools? Absolutely. And Miles has brought on some administrators that are really beginning to make a difference in those key campuses. Dual language is another element. A lot of people don't know much about dual language. Dual language, we have the largest dual language program in the state of Texas. We have over 130 elementary schools that have dual language. We have 55,000 limited English proficient kids, okay? Our ELL kids are outperforming general ed kids in Dallas on all the exams.
Let me
They're
ask you
doing
this.
better.
Let me ask you this. No doubt there are exceptions in terms of the performance. Overall, DISD 159.
159,000.
Okay, 159,000 students. I think the mayor had come out in his editorial. And let's talk specifically about this because this jumped out at me.
Sure.
And that's where you can get into a situation where you're looking at, well, you're comparing apples to oranges in a lot of ways. But this one jumped out, and if it's accurate, is really concerning. I think you had mentioned that among the predominantly 9 majority black Dallas ISD high schools, let me see, one of the most tragic numbers I've seen is that a staggering 1% of students, fewer than 200 total, who graduated in the last decade from the 9 majority black Dallas ISD high schools were deemed college ready based on their SAT or ACT entry. Now that is incredibly disconcerting for
Absolutely.
individuals, certainly in those schools.
And let's look at those schools.
Okay.
Every one of those schools that he's mentioned, Madison, Lincoln, Roosevelt, SOC, they all have new principals as of last year.
Okay.
Every one of them.
And do you attribute that to?
I attribute that to Mike
our
Myers.
superintendent?
I attribute, and that's where the controversy was last year. Oh, we love our principals. They've done such a great job. And I was one of the advocates that said, look at the data. Let's do data-driven instruction. Let's look at it. And the college readiness indicators in every one of those schools in Madison, Lincoln, SOC, Roosevelt were pathetic. SAT scores, AP courses taken, AP exams taken, pathetic. New principals.
But
Now,
realistically,
and it's going to take time for those new principals to turn a school around.
Okay.
I was going to say that as a teacher, realistically, they were assigned to their positions last year.
Last year,
Changes are not going to happen.
3 years. It takes
Within
us
a
3 years to
year.
turn a school around. That's what Dina Escanilla has done in North Dallas. This is her 3rd year, and she's barely beginning to get that battleship turned around.
Okay. So you think DISD, based on what the superintendent has done, perhaps some of the things that the trustees have done, we may not need this home rule school charter.
I haven't been convinced yet, Eric.
Okay.
The only thing that I'm very disappointed in is the area of governance.
Okay.
Okay, we have 1 Latino on the school board. We should have a minimum of 2, but that's an aberration because Jerome Garza left the board and his district should be a Latino. And Eric Cowan someday may decide not to run. That ought to be a Latino seat because it's predominantly Latino. And possibly Pleasant Grove. Nancy Bingham is indicating that she's probably not going to run again. And that district, that seat ought to be a Latino. So we'll probably have 3 out of 9. Okay? Eventually, and you know the demographics. We're young, we're growing, Latinos. Eventually, in the next 5 to 10 years, we're going to have more than 3 to 4 members on the board. It's going to happen.
Let's talk about governance to a certain extent with respect to this and what they have currently, Renee. You mentioned our superintendent changing out principals. Certainly, a principal can come in and change the dynamic of a school. Strong personality. We know what happens. We've seen it. Change the whole way in which the school is approaching academics and other things. Does he have the tools, the ability, and you tell me based on your experience and other things, to get rid of a principal, to get rid of teachers, all of those little things? Of course, you've got the political fallback that he has to deal with, but does he have the necessary utensils? Hey, you're not performing, you're out of here.
With the principal evaluation rubric that he passed last year? Yes, he does.
Okay.
And number one. Number two, as LULAC leaders, we met with him before he did that, and he said, I am going to change the way people are selected. The cronyism system is going to go out the window. And that's why LULAC supported him, because DISD had been a product of cronyism, of who do you know, what church do you go to, what sorority do you belong to become a principal or to be elevated. So he's gotten rid of that, not overnight, but he's changing that. Now he's focusing on Teacher Excellence Initiative, the whole issue of evaluating teachers. And I don't know how much talk or discussion people have had about that, but it's going to be a very, very controversial process. They call it Teach for Pay or whatever, but he's going to evaluate teachers on three bases. Number one, classroom organization and what goes on in the classroom. Number two, and that's going to be a certain percentage. Number two is going to be student academic achievement, test scores, grades, whatever. And I think that's 30%, 35%. The other one is going to be 50%. And then the other 15% is going to be a student survey that's going to be designed and developed with, that it's going to be relevant for kids to be able to respond and say, not I like my teacher, I don't like my teacher, but am I engaged? Have I been engaged effectively by my teacher? Have I learned things within this classroom? So 15% of the teacher evaluation is going to be student surveys.
There is no doubt that the superintendent takes the lead in terms of how things are done within the school district. What role do the trustees play in that? What do they give him the tools? How does that work?
That is the big challenge. Having worked with school boards since 1971, when I was appointed triathlon committee chair in the second year, and the board members called the triathlon committee a super school board, that's been the dynamics. That you have some very good school board members, you have excellent sometimes school board presidents, and then you have school board members that want to micromanage.
Okay.
And that's what we have right now. We have 2 or 3 board members right now that believe in micromanaging. Okay? And that's not what a board of governance does.
What do you think their job is? What is their job?
Their job is governance. Their job is policy.
Explain that. Policy driven.
Policy is you don't get involved in the issues of having staff reporting to you other than the superintendent and other than the auditor, other than the lawyer for the school district. And you've had board members that go out and say that these are the principles that I want. Have meetings in the schools and tell staff what to do. That's uncalled for. They need to deal with overall policy of what they establish and how the policy is implemented by your superintendent and by your staff.
Let me ask you this. This charter school passes, or this charter is given, they get to create a charter that creates governance. How are you going to govern? Are we going to get rid of the superintendent model? Are we going to get rid of the board of trustees? That'd be something that they could do with this new charter. Do you think the board of trustees and the superintendent relationship that we have now is working?
To a degree it is, and to a degree it's not. Okay? We've always had, you're not always going to have a 9-0 slam dunk school board.
Yeah.
Just not going to happen. And sometimes we've had 7-2 votes. Sometimes we've had 6-3s. Sometimes we had 5-4s. So, it all depends on the dynamics. But that's not the issue. The issue is not how they're going to vote. The issue is for board members to understand what their roles are. And it's not micromanaging. It's not questioning the superintendent on all bits of minutiae.
Well, let me posit this for you. If we get this 15-member commission and they create a new charter, there can be some outlines in terms of what the trustees' responsibilities are, clear, and basically say, hey, look, this is what you're responsible for doing, not the micromanagement that is going on. We could do away with the board of trustees. We could do a whole lot of things in terms of governance with this new charter. How do you think, don't you think that would be a possibility for improvement in that way?
Again, it depends. It depends if they're going to be purely appointed or it's going to be a combination of appointment or selection or election. It's going to be very important in terms of their job description. What is their job description? And then, of course, going out and recruiting who's going to be in that position. And right now, the recruitment process, as everybody knows, in terms of who's going to run for school board, the excitement is not there.
And in all honesty, board of trustees, they're voted upon. They're elected officials, and generally we're talking about 1,000 votes or so per school
Per
board.
election.
So you're really not looking at a whole lot of folks having to vote them in terms of who our school board trustees are going to be, right?
That is correct.
Okay, so we could change that if we had something that gave us the tools, and the mayor talks about this. He talks about having additional tools in the toolbox. Like you, I haven't seen that. One, we don't know who the commissioners might be, and two, we have no idea what this charter structure is going to look like. I don't know who could, because I haven't really seen any names in terms of who these commissioners might be. But I want to get into that with you, Renee, and we'll talk a little bit more. We're going to take a quick break. I want you guys to come back, and we'll take about a 2-minute break and come back and we'll talk about this stuff. Thank you very much. Please rejoin us. Thank you so much for rejoining us. We are here with Renee Martinez, and we're talking about this new home rule charter provision for the district. Renee, we were talking before we went off air about the governance. We were talking about what it sounds like to me is your perception of what Mike Miles is doing is at least headed in the right direction. Finding some different principles that are in schools that just aren't working out. And you're thinking potentially that we might have to give him some time to implement these things. Let's talk about what the good possibilities of putting together a home rule charter district might look like. Now, we've heard some things from this organization that Geronimo is bringing forward about what could possibly change for the better. What are some things in your mind that you could conceivably see would be an opportunity to make things better?
Well, academically, this whole issue of expansion of the academic school year, from my understanding, the district can already do that, and it's done it before. So to me, that's
But in all honesty, they've done it in a very limited number of schools.
So, but it can be done.
Okay.
It can be done. So that's a softball
Okay.
that they're throwing at us. Any other initiatives that I've heard, I really haven't heard many academic initiatives. I've got concerns. I've got concerns about dual language, which is a state mandated and federal mandated program,
And those things don't change.
well, they don't change, but they could be altered. Because if you look at some of the charter schools, they say we've got bilingual education and it's really ESL. That's not bilingual education. And then they end up getting waivers from the state to be able to have ESL instead of dual language.
Yeah.
So that's a question. So that would be, to me, that would be a non-negotiable. If you're going to have this, you're going to continue the dual language program. You're going to do it one way, and you're going to do it possibly continue expanding two-way. Magnet schools, we continue to grow them. Right now, Mr. Miles, at the request of communities, is expanding the choice of academies and magnets into the community. North Dallas is partially a magnet now. Okay, Mata is going to be considered as a Montessori. So we've got to provide more options so that we can expand those choices, because Townview is full. The Arts Magnet is full. Spence is literally full. Travis Academy is full. So we have to continue expanding those options.
Good side. Things that you could conceivably see that would be there. Anything else?
Again, those are the programs that are the mainstay.
How about the curriculum? I think that's a big focus for a lot of
And
people.
I think
Recreating the curriculum.
And I think the curriculum that we have right now is aligned. Hinojosa, the previous superintendent, and really Mike Moses got that aligned. It was not aligned, 5 to 10 years ago. Teachers were teaching, having lesson plans that was not aligned with a general curriculum. It's now aligned. And now it's all aligned also with the state mandated, with TEKS and aligned with what they're going to do with STARS. So that's aligned. To me, there's no controversy there, unless you want to add issues of religion and evolution, which I'm not in favor of.
Did they talk about training for teachers?
Big issue. And that is a concern right now, that teachers are not being given enough training as far as development, professional development. There's principals that are saying the same thing. More professional training.
Currently, whose responsibility is that? Whose responsibility is that?
Unfortunately, the professional development department has been annihilated. And so there's a lot of talk about resurfacing that department, and they're beginning to do that. And in fact, I've shared that with Mr. Miles, that we've got to provide more development, more professional development for our teachers, for our bilingual teachers, and for all teachers, and especially for the principals.
Has he mentioned that he's constrained by the current
No.
structure that would do that? So you don't see any current constraints on Miles to implement
No.
one curriculum, training for teachers, things of that nature?
The key is that we need more bilingual teachers.
Those are
We-
hard to get. Those
They're
are
hard-
hard to
They're
find.
hard to get, but there's some ideas out there in growing your own.
Yeah.
And doing better
Growing them
recruitment.
locally.
Growing them locally is the ideal. We've got a consortium of universities. Texas Tech is doing what's called a fast track program, 3-semester program, where they're gonna be training bilingual teachers. They got 30 right now in a cohort, they want another 30. So there's some ideas out there. More recruitment in Puerto Rico. Puerto Rico's always sent us tremendous number of teachers, and eventually more teachers from Mexico. Now, there's also a lot of professionals in the Metroplex that we know no one's recruiting. People that have degrees from other countries that are out there, that could be going through the alternative certification program, that are bilingual.
So let's talk about that. Talk about a little bit about bilingual education in terms of what is being currently presented. Kids come in, that perhaps ESL programs or some other program that they would need to take part in. How does that work in terms of if you don't have enough teachers? How are they being educated if you don't have enough teachers to teach?
Unfortunately, we're having to have substitutes in those classrooms.
Okay.
So we've had anywhere from 70 to 200 vacancies of bilingual teachers this year. Okay, the ELL population is huge. Of the 70%, 50,000 or more are limited English proficient.
Why is that? Why is that we're so short on bilingual teachers?
Because the recruitment effort stopped 3 to 4 years ago. Hector Flores.
Why is that?
Hector Flores was the top recruiter. He's the one that recruited 500 to 1,000 bilingual teachers from Mexico, from Puerto Rico, from Colombia, from the Philippines. Mike Moses, and later to an extent, Michael Hinojosa gave him a budget. He went out and found them. He found the universities in Monterrey. He found the universities in Juarez. He went out and recruited in Colombia, in Argentina. We brought in over 50 to 100 from Spain. He found them because there was a commitment on the part of the superintendents and a commitment on the board to create some money for marketing. And I don't know how you became a teacher, but something attracted you to this part of the country.
And is there now a loss of commitment towards that?
There had been a loss of commitment until we sat down with Miles and showed him the numbers a year ago. And but the previous folks, the interim superintendent, did nothing.
So what's going to change now? Has anything
Now
happened?
he's starting to recruit again.
Okay.
Now he's starting to gear up the HR department.
Now, theoretically, something like that, there's a shortage there. Perhaps this new charter provision would provide for the recruitment, provide specific monies, recruiting and maintaining a certain level of bilingual educators.
Absolutely.
Sufficient, especially with what we're looking at. Let's talk about the numbers, which,
Before you get off
Go
that
ahead,
topic, Mr. Miles has reinstated the stipend and the signing bonus for bilingual teachers. That had been done away with. And so
since when? How long? has it been?
this year.
How long was it done away with?
It was done away for like 3 years.
Okay.
And a bilingual teacher gets $46,000 a year. The stipend was about $3,000, and the signing bonus was another two or three. So a bilingual teacher starting in DISD could be making $50,000 a year. Currently.
Okay.
That had stopped for 3 years. And guess what? The suburban school districts started stealing our own bilingual teachers.
Yes,
Okay,
we
that's
saw
what
that
happened.
a lot.
That's what happened.
Moving to Irving, going to different.
Irving's demographics are identical to Dallas's. 69% Latino.
We were talking in the break about African American flight. We were talking about the smaller schools that are predominantly African American. The realities are, 70% Latino in
Correct.
DISD?
Correct. And growing.
It's a huge, are there projections in the next 10, 15 years as to what it's going to look like?
Well, over 51% of all school-age population in Texas is now Latino. And Steve Murdoch is predicting that by the year 2040, the total Latino population is going to be over 65% Latino in the state of Texas. So when you disaggregate that 65%, that 51% student population is probably going to be closer to 60%. Here in Dallas, we're already at 70%, okay? And the median age of our families here in Dallas is around, for Latinos, around 26, 27. Average family size is 4. So the pre-K population in Dallas is already over 70%. So I would say that within the next 5 years, the Latino population, school population, is going to be closer to 75%.
Let's put all that into focus, Renee. With this charter school system, having the opportunity, really this is a blank slate. This is an opportunity to do some things if it works the way in which you could envision or one could envision it working. An emphasis on the realities of what's about to happen, which is basically, looks like 75, 80% Latinos in our school districts over the next few years. Possibility. Putting something together that takes that into consideration, putting together additional programs that deal with perhaps even pre-K programs that prepare, preparedness towards bilingual education. These kids, 3, 4, 5 years old, who don't speak the language, perhaps creating programs that allow us to reach out to them sooner. That'd be a good thing, right?
Absolutely.
Okay.
But-
Do you think in the current system that's being taken into consideration?
Let's back up on the term blank slate.
Okay.
Back in the 70s, when we developed the present court order, a group of Anglo businessmen created a group called the Dallas Alliance. Jack Lowe Sr. was the chair, and the top business leaders brought in 7 blacks and 7 whites and 7 Hispanics, and we dealt for 3 months developing the order that created the magnet schools. And they did have a blank slate, because Jack Lowe was a visionary, and he said, let's create something that's optimum for education. Forget about busing, we're gonna have it, let's do the optimum. And we brought in experts, and we dealt for 3 months. I don't think that's the case, because we got to know, those 14 of us, Latino and black leaders, got to know the Jack Lowes and the Dave Foxes, and we trusted them, we respected them. They really, when they said it was a blank slate, it was a blank slate. I don't know who these other folks are. I really don't.
Well, let's talk about these other folks in that relationship. We're talking about, and when we say these other folks, we're talking about supporters or support for public schools, which is, again, a nonprofit organization, which seems limited to less than 10 people, I would imagine. Some of them are remaining anonymous. Some are
And that's scary, by the way. It's anonymous thing is scary.
Absolutely. But from what it appears, all they are doing is getting the petitions together to put this to the trustees to create a commission. Now, what Geronimo has said is they have no interest in trying to determine what that commission looks like.
That's very naive.
Okay, and I'm just saying, I'm suggesting this is what it looks like in terms of what's there.
That's extremely
Absolutely, that's what I want to talk about in a second, in terms of why you might think that would be different, or if there could. We're talking about the trustees. The trustees make these appointments. The current makeup is going to appoint this commission. What do you think currently? You know most of the folks on the board. What do you think they're going to be influenced by?
I think, first of all, there's going to be resistance. Secondly, there's going to be politics. And then the whole issue of race is going to come up, and ethnicity.
How many are we looking at? We got 9 trustees. Mike Morath is certainly for this and moving in this direction. What do the others look like? Do you have any idea what the others look like?
I don't have any idea. I know Miguel Solis very good, very well, and
You
you
mentioned last night.
listened to him last night.
Yeah.
And Miguel is a very passionate, bright, articulate Latino, and he's a former educator. So I have every bit of trust in him. And I have trust in some of the others
Yeah.
in terms of their knowledge of education. And then there's others that I don't have any trust at all or respect at all. So again, what are they going to do? How are they going to respond politically, racially, ethnically? I do know from the history that I've been involved with the school district, people do not give up power easily. And I repeat that. People will not give up power easily. So
Can you repeat that one more time?
people will not give up power easily, right? And for what that means. And there's going to be board members that are going to say, I was elected, why should I, name somebody to take my place since I was elected? Okay? And what guarantees do I have? These people that you're talking about that did the petitions and whatever,
Right.
they invested $500,000. I've never met a businessman that has invested $500,000 without wanting something, back. Okay? I've never have met someone like that.
Yeah, that may be true.
Okay?
Well, when you have billions of dollars, then it's probably a little bit easier. 500,000 is
Well,
kind of
and that's the agenda that we have to also
But what
talk
would
about.
the final product be? a better student that is gonna be ready to go to college? I mean, at the end, if there is an interest behind that we could figure, that we're not certain what it needs or what it's gonna ask for, if it's a good change that is gonna help kids perform better, why not?
Well, that sounds really good, Carla, but that's, draw me the template.
Let me read this real quick, and that way people can get an understanding of what it's supposed to look like.
Mhm.
What this commission, because from what I can read, from what I'm looking at in terms of the education code, this commission is going to have a tremendous amount of power
Mhm.
with respect to the creation of this charter. The law gives them a lot of opportunity to make changes in a huge way.
Yeah.
And now this is what it said. It says at section 12.015, Charter Commission. Not later than the 30th day after the date of receipt of a petition or adoption of a resolution under section 12.014, the Board of Trustees of the school district shall appoint 15 residents of the district to serve on the commission to frame a charter for the district. At B, the membership of the Charter Commission must reflect the racial, ethnic, socioeconomic, and geographic diversity of the district. A majority of the members appointed to the commission must be parents of school-aged children attending public school. At least 25% of the commission must be classroom teachers selected by the representative of the professional staff pursuant to section 11.251E. Now, in theory, that looks like, hey, that might be a commission that would be reflective of the community and represent the community in a proper way. From what you just heard, you think there still could be some shenanigans in terms of the appointment of commission. Maybe not shenanigans, but politics coming into play. People being chosen for the commission in a certain way.
What if the board says, no, we're not gonna do it?
What if what?
What if the Board of Education says, no, we're not gonna do it? What if,
Not gonna do what?
appoint anybody?
They have to.
What if they don't?
They have to.
Okay, so is
And
it?
we would sue and say you
Well,
have to.
that's what I'm asking.
Yeah. Yeah.
You would sue.
Yeah, it's a shall.
Okay.
It's a shall. They had,
Okay.
if they get these 25, if they get this 5% of the
Signed
signatures,
petition. Mhm.
the board of trustees
I wanted
has
you
no
to say that,
choice.
Eric.
Yeah, they have no
Okay.
choice.
So they get
According to
sued.
the law, they
So-
have no choice.
So they get sued. They get sued. So if 4 board members of the 9 say no, then.
Yeah, they can't
does it
say
pass?
no.
Does it pass them?
They can't say no.
So they get sued.
Yeah, there's two ways, and that may be what people are kind of, there might be a misconception. It's either the petition, the 5% at 25,000, or a majority of the members bringing it. That's why they give you different sections.
Right.
They're not going the route where they're going to try to make the Board of Trustees vote in a certain way.
Right.
They're going the route of, you must do
You must
this
do it.
if we do, and this is the way they're going.
Okay.
That's why it's so
I
important
understand.
how many signatures
I
they
understand.
have.
I
Because
understand.
this could be, they talked about a March 20th date.
Deadline. Wow.
Well, in terms of talking about a press release and other things, that's why I have.
Getting the petition signatures, I think, is going to happen. Getting that 25% of the vote is 50-50.
25% of the vote where?
In November.
Okay, and that's true. That's a.
That's going to
But
be.
quite honestly, that's just with respect to the charter.
To the charter,
new
exactly,
change in
the
the
charter.
charter, right?
Yeah.
And the charter might look great.
Yeah.
The charter might look wonderful.
And
It may
it-
look bad. Everything I think depends on the creation
The
of this
creation of
commission.
the charter people and how
This
they
is what they're
imagine it
supposed to be saying.
Yeah.
This is what it's supposed to look like,
Right.
which sounds good on paper.
Right.
And of course, when you implement it, it could be completely
Correct.
different. We could be looking at a composition that is, not reflective of the racial, ethnic, socioeconomic, and geographic diversity of the district. And that's where you get into the fear of what might
Or
be.
you have, during that period of time, as a charter commission is working on initiatives and reform issues, they start, hypothetically, let me throw you one out, start talking about expanding charter schools in Dallas. And a lot of the studies that I'm reading, charter schools deplete the public education or the public school system. They take away our kids. We have 30,000 kids out there in private schools and charters in the ISD. 30,000.
Let me go ahead and stop you right there, Renee. We're going to go ahead and take a quick break. I've got Geronimo on the phone. Apparently he's finished his hearing, and I'm going to see if we can't get him on here to attempt to answer some of our questions.
Tell them to bring some lunch.
We'll try to do that. He's not going to come here physically, so it's going to have to be, maybe you can send it over or something to that effect. We're going to try to get in his position and what he's thinking when we come back. Please rejoin us in 2 minutes, and we'll get a little deeper into this. all set. Thank you so much for rejoining us today on Law for the People. We are here with Renee Martinez, who we've been listening to for the last hour, Carla De Leon, who's again an attorney in our office, and on the phone joining us today is Geronimo Valadez. Now, Geronimo, can you hear us? Geronimo, can you hear us? Hey, buddy, you there? Geronimo? Geronimo, can you hear us? There you go, brother. I just hit the mute button. That was my fault. I apologize for that. We've been talking for the last hour about your organization, the organization that was created, Support Our Public Schools. Why don't you tell us a little bit about what Support Our Public Schools is and what it is you guys are doing?
Okay, so you want me to start now?
Yes, sir.
Alright, so first of all, let me start with saying I apologize for not being there sooner, but I was in court and you had Mr. Sevilla, so with that I can go ahead and start with a very brief summary about what our organization is and what our intent is.
Absolutely.
And then I'll welcome any questions. So, brief summary, my organization is called Support Our Public Schools. We've been referred to as SOPS for short. It is a 501c4 nonprofit organization. It's got 5 board members, all of whom are DIS graduates, and there is diversity in terms of age, race, and gender. And so we all got together and we looked at issues that are facing the ISD. We all knew that the ISD is doing some really, really good things and it has great potential. But we also looked at the things that were holding the ISD back. And so, me being a lawyer and talking to some other folks, we looked at this law that was passed in 1995. It's called the Home. Without getting into the details of the statutory construction, anything like that, essentially what the Home Rule does is that it says all of the school districts in Texas are governed by Texas Education Institute, right? So there's a law passed that all ISDs in Texas. Those ISDs are constrained by a number of things, including, the length of the school year, how long students have to be there, a number of things that just are blanketing everybody. We looked at it and said, well, under the Home Rule, there's an exception. It says if you think that the law that governs all of the school districts in the state shouldn't apply to yours, then you have an opportunity to create your own constitution for your own city. And there's a couple of ways that you can do that. Either you can get 5% of the voters to sign a petition that says, hey, we want to discuss changes that are possible in our school district. Or if the trustees decide that they want to look at it, then we can have a discussion about the Home Rule. The Home Rule is an opportunity for our city to take a look at what is affecting our kids. And we have an opportunity to say, okay, we're not going to come up with a new constitution. That constitution can have a number of things that are required by the state that will stay there, a number of other things that are not required by the state that gives us discretion. So what my group decided to do was say, okay, let's bring this to the public attention. Let's let them know that as of today, everything that DISD has to do is regulated by the state. Let's let them know that there is an opportunity for a provision in the law that says if you guys don't like the laws of the state and y'all want to do your own thing, we can do that. So I don't want to get into too many of the details because I think you guys will have some very pertinent questions, but essentially my group is a group that said, hey, for all the ISD grads, there's an opportunity that we can have our own school district that is created by the parents, by the teachers, by the folks that really matter in our city, that may be different than San Antonio, may be different than Houston or Austin or Boston. Maybe the kids in our city need something different from them, so we would like the opportunity to craft a new charter. And so what we're doing is we're promoting the idea that, hey, let's all get together and look at this. If the voters think that it's important enough to our kids, then we can sign a petition, and then the real work starts. Then the folks that are appointed can craft a constitution that really can be tailor-made to what we need.
Okay, Geronimo.
That's our group.
Absolutely, thank you. my first question, I guess, is why? What is it we're missing within the current DISD structure that you think a new charter could better? What do you guys think? What did y'all come together and say, hey, the state is limiting this, we need to do that? What are some of the things that you think could change under this home rule charter?
That's a hugely broad question. So to start off with, the Texas Education Code is over 2,000 pages long, and it governs everything from when does the school year start and when does the school year end. Whether or not you have a certain type of curriculum, whether or not the teachers can have a system by which they are educating the kids. So if there's something in particular that you guys are wondering, I can tell you. Hold on, by the way, I'm trying to find my documents here. I just got out of court, so there's a lot of things that could happen under the home rule charter, but if you want just one example right off the top of my head, let's talk about the school. As of right now,
You said the school year?
yes.
Okay.
The amount of time that the kids are in school. So one of the first things that comes to my mind is that as of right now, Austin, the education code requires that school starts on approximately the fourth week of August, and it has to end on the first week of May. What we have seen, what our data shows, is that our minority students fall off with during this time. So if right now the IS starts at a certain time, it ends at a certain time, and we have the whole summer where poor kids, lower socioeconomic kids, once they quit school, once May 5th comes around, whatever that date is, they say, oh, great, we're on vacation. And they don't have any summer programs, they don't have any kind of new education initiatives, nothing. They don't get back into school mode until school starts again in August. What the education shows, what the data shows is that typically it's the minority students and the lower income students that suffer because they don't have any engagement over the summer. What this thing will allow is that if we look at this, we say, okay, well, we don't like the fact that Texas requires us to start on a certain date and end on a certain date. We would like to start on this date or that date, and we would like to have year-round school. And I don't want that to be misconceived. When I say year-round school, we're not talking about the amount of time that a student has to have their butts in a seat. So the state of Texas is still going to govern the minimum amount of time that they have to get a seat. But what we're saying is, okay, well, one of the freedoms we would like is to say, well, we want to go staggered. We would like to make sure that the low income and the minority students still are engaged over the summer instead of a required 3-month break.
Okay, let me stop you. Let me stop you right there, Geronimo. That's a good example, and let me see how we get there with what you guys are proposing. How does SOPS influence the commission to create that part of the charter that allows for that extended time? How do they influence the commission? How does that work in your estimation?
I will tell you, that's a great question. So the quick and easy answer to that is that SOPS does not and cannot influence the decision makers when they come here. Let's assume that we get the petition signed and now the people have to decide, right? SOPS has no influence over whether or not that actually happens. The voters and the parents of the ISD decides whether that happens. The teachers, the administrators, they all decide whether or not, hey, now that the petition is signed, we have an opportunity to draft a new constitution. The people that are going to draft that constitution, we have nothing to do with. So real quickly, what I will say is, SOP's role here is to trigger the conversation. Once we trigger the conversation, once 5% of the voting population here in DISD decides that they want to look at this, there's going to be a 15-member commission that is appointed. That 15-member commission is supposed to be composed of and will be composed of a reflection of the racial, ethnic, geographic diversity of the city. It also requires that at minimum 5 parents, the ISD parents be on there,
Teachers.
parents and students in the ISD, as well as teachers in the ISD, be on that commission. So that commission
Okay.
All we're doing is forcing them to have the discussion so that them, the parents, and the voters can decide what they want.
Okay. And on the record, you guys, SOPS doesn't believe that they're going to have an influential impact on what the charter looks like. Let's talk about the 15-member commission, which for me is a really big thing. I think they're going to have a lot of power. Do you think that SOPS will have any influence on the Board of Trustees in terms of who's appointed on this 15-member commission?
Absolutely not. Now, let me qualify that. So I am the treasurer of SOPS. I am a board member of SOPS. I have a vested interest in seeing that there are good members of a 15-member commission appointed. That said, as an organization, we won't influence the process. But as individuals, Mr. Cedillo reached out to you and I reached out to Mr. Martinez. And I said, hey, let's figure out as voters, as interested parties in the ISD, that we make sure that this 15-member commission has the adequate skills and it does this right. But as an organization, we absolutely have no power and we have no influence as an organization over that 15-member commission. But as individual leaders, the fact that I'm talking to you right now, the fact that I'm talking to Mr. Martinez right now, and the fact that I'm talking to your audience, I can say, guess what? Everybody's been informed on this issue. And if we want to have our influence as a community on who is going to be reflected on that 15-member commission, that's what I can do as an individual member of SOPS. To answer your question, a lot of people have wondered, well, what is our role as an organization? Our role as an organization is to start the discussion, and then once the discussion starts, individually, we're free to go and say, hey, Eric, this is a good thing. We need to make sure that there's great representation on the 15-member commission.
Okay. Last night. Go ahead.
What I'm saying is, SOPS has absolutely no influence on the Board of Trustees. So, I'm sure there has, but the Board of Trustees, the current board, there's 9 trustees. That Board of Trustees are the ones that are going to appoint the 15-member commission. So I want to make clear that SOPS has absolutely no influence over that 15-member, the Board of Trustees that's going to appoint the 15-member commission.
Okay. Last night we had a meeting. There was a lot of back and forth in terms of what this thing looked like. I think a lot of the people who were there were a little concerned about the timing, and they felt like, hey, this came out of nowhere. This all happened so quickly. What I'd like to know, Geronimo, is when you were approached, when this organization began, and what did the time frame look like? Did this just happen before March 2nd, or was it months before? You mentioned Mike Morath, and I don't know if he's the one who approached you, but tell us a little bit about that in terms of the composition of this SOPS organization.
Okay, so right off the top of my head, I can't tell you when the discussion started. I can tell you they started several months before we came out with the petition. So by way of background, you know that I was involved with lawsuits, the Board of Trustees, and all of that. I've been involved with certain issues related to the Board of Trustees. Somebody approached me, it was Mike Morath, and said, hey, Geronimo, you seem like a reasonable guy. And you're a lawyer. Have you ever taken a look at this thing called the home rule? And I said, no, Mike, I've never taken a look at it. What is it? He said, a lot of people know about it, but, I think this is a good thing. What do you think? And I looked at it, he was like, take a look at it. He was like, you're a DISD grad. Nobody can discuss and nobody can tell folks more than DISD graduates what they experience now. Take a look at this. And I looked at it, and I came back to him, and I was like, man, so what this is saying is that DISD can really become independent, and the folks at Dallas can really determine what is important to their kids. I said, now, as a lawyer, I understand the concept. I was like, so what are you thinking about here? He's like, look, I'm not just anything, but I think it's important for you to know this, and there's an opportunity. If we can get this done, there may be an opportunity that we can change the city of Dallas. That is all that happened, and that was about 4 months ago, give or take. It was in November. I know it was in November because I was in Europe. So it was around November of last year.
Okay.
So
with that said, Geronimo, why didn't y'all bring it out? Why didn't y'all bring it up for discussion before March?
Okay, so there were a lot of discussions between me and the other folks. So I reached out to some other DIC graduates, particularly the other four members of the board. There's a guy named Wilson Hollins, who's also a DIC grad, and a guy named Steven Jones, who's a DIC grad. And I said, look, there's an opportunity to create a nonprofit that we can take this on. We can, do a petition drive, do all these other things. The reason that we didn't come out to everybody was, frankly, we didn't know the research. I hadn't looked at the law totally. I'm not a politician. I don't know what it takes to create a petition drive. In fact, Renee probably knows this more than anybody else in the room. In order to get a petition on the ballot, and there's a lot of legalities that have to go onto a petition. And you have to have certain language and everything else. So there were a lot of discussions going on back and forth between us, and we had to prepare so that we could create an actual valid petition that we could put forth to the people. Now, there's a lot of questions about, well, wait a minute, this was a surprise. The morning news ran a front page Sunday article saying there's a new organization and they're running a petition drive. Well, here's the thing. Yes, we had all these discussions preparing the petition and preparing what we thought we wanted to see changed. And then we launched the petition, but here's the thing. We need 26,000 signatures. We were not naive to think, okay, well, we're going to send people out to the polls and they're going to start being told about the petitions and we're going to have them all in one day. We absolutely knew it was going to be about a 45 to 60 day process. So we launched the petitions and it got a lot of coverage. And guess what? A lot of coverage may have been negative because people perceived that this was secretive, but at least that sparked the conversation because now people want to know what the petition is. And guess what? The other thing is, there's 60 days for us to go out and inform everybody. Hey, everybody, here's what the petition is. I'm on your radio show right now, and you want to know what the petition is. People want to be informed about what they're signing. Great. If we had one petition signed on the first day, it didn't matter to us. Now people want to know what the petition is, and now we're saying, hey, we're going to hold town hall meetings. We're going to do everything. We're not secretive like you all think. That was the point. Now everybody's wondering what is the petition, and now we can educate everybody. And we don't have to sign it. There's still 60 days, and we don't have nearly enough petitions.
How many signatures do y'all have, Geronimo?
I told you back last night. I don't know the exact number. I know it's a few thousand. I can reach back and I can send it back to you. I don't care.
If you would, are y'all close? Do you have any idea how many y'all got that first day when y'all went out to the polls?
Honestly, brother, I have no clue. Because, and let me be totally transparent with you guys, because there's a question about, well, where do these petitioners come from? We hire these petitioners to go out there. And they went out and got petitions. It wasn't about the number of petitions that we got the first day. It was about letting everybody know that this petition exists. So, honestly, I wasn't concerned with how many petitions we got on the first day. And, since then, now the conversation's happening. What I speculate is going to happen is that now that people are being educated about this, now that people are going to be informed about both the pros and the cons about the homeless, you guys are asking the hard question. This is when the petition drive really starts. So I think it's a misconception on a lot of people's part that this will just take us back and that we thought we were going to get all the petitions so that we could do something that nobody knew about. That is naive. Eric and Renee, both of y'all know that it's impossible to get 26,000 signatures on one day. So that's what we did. We said, hey, let's get the petitions out there, and then we'll schedule town hall meetings, and we'll have meetings with everybody so they can ask us what this is about. But the beauty of it is that the conversation has been sparked.
Let's talk about that. When are these meetings going to be held? When do you plan on doing this? What does the time frame look like for you guys?